Hey everyone, my name's Walter and I'm back here with another story from Reddit. Today we're going to be talking about a neckbeard. Neckbeards are those fine gentlemen who always move the Bibles to the fiction section. And sometimes they have body pillows. I mean, who doesn't, right? Anyway, let's get started with classic neckbeards from Reddit. When I said I might be covering classic neckbeard stories, someone pretty much immediately asked me for this one, the Weebsquatch. This is actually from Reddit Weeaboo Tales, which is another subreddit I used to cover more often, and it's a place to post stories about cringy anime and Japanese culture fans. And the story is at least 4 years old by now. The Weebsquatch. First post on Reddit. Reading Weeaboo Tales inspired me to tell my own true story of living with a Weeaboo Sasquatch hybrid for 11 months. Note, the Weebsquatch never presented any of the typical mannerisms of a furry, animal alter ego, dressing in animal costumes, etc., and thus has a separate distinction as a half Sasquatch, half Weeaboo. FYI, it's pretty a long tale, but I've tried to condense it as much as possible. At age 19, I accepted a university scholarship in a city I had only ever been to once prior, and set out one fine summer with 2 high school friends who had enrolled in the same university to meet with a potential landlord. We found an ad for 3 affordable rooms to rent in a house close to the school. The girl, let's call her Hannah, renting the rooms informed us that the house was her father's rental property, but she'd be on the lease with him as a landlord and would be handling rent payments and maintenance of the house while also living with us as a roommate. Hannah seemed cool, smart, and down to earth when we met her. After a nice chat, it seemed like we'd get along. We liked the place and agreed to sign a lease. It was a 5-bedroom house, and my 2 friends and I each rented a room for ourselves. We asked who would be occupying the remaining room that was unspoken for. Hannah told us it had been rented out to Matt, not his real name, he'll come into this tale later, a physics student who's also going into his first year of university. We'd be 5 freshmen living away from home for the first time. Cool, right? Moving day came and my friends and I moved into our house about a month before classes started. Hannah was there when we moved in, but her room was in the basement, while my friends and I had the 3 main floor rooms, so we didn't see her for the rest of the day after she gave us keys and went to the basement. We met him the next day. He was Dominic, not his real name, the Weebsquatch. Half Weeaboo, half Sasquatch, this creature was clearly the result of the most unholy of unions. Dominic was 6'6", 300 plus pounds of blubber and covered in enough body hair to clog even the cleanest drain if he ever decided to take a shower. My shock and horror were complete when my friend and I witnessed Dominic, clad in dark eyeshadow, a spiked choker, an anime shirt I couldn't recognize that didn't conceal his belly, and gym shorts, shambling up the basement stairs on the first full day in our new place. Still, I tried not to judge his odd fashion/makeup and greeted him. Hi, I said to Dominic. Hi, he replied, not making eye contact. Are you Matt? I asked, extending my hand for a handshake and greeting. The Weebsquatch ignored my gesture and walked past me to the fridge. No, I'm Dominic, Hannah's boyfriend. Having no other niceties to offer and his bounty of refrigerated Mountain Dew in hand, the Weebsquatch shambled back to the basement. My friend and I agreed that Dominic smelled horribly, seemed weird, greasy, and antisocial, and it was even more peculiar that Hannah never once mentioned Dominic to us prior to our meeting him. Furthermore, we wondered how an unkempt beast like Dominic got a girlfriend like Hannah, a cute 5-foot-tall, 110-pound girl of mixed Asian/Caucasian heritage. But for all our musings, we had no idea just how weird the living situation that we found ourselves in would become. It wasn't long until we discovered the Weebsquatch's dark basement lair. Like reasonable human beings, we believed that Dominic and Hannah would share a room, but this was not the case. Hannah took the downstairs master bedroom because it had an en-suite bathroom, while Dominic's room was the living room at the bottom of the basement stairs. If you looked left at the bottom of the basement stairs, you'd see the Weebsquatch cave, and if you went right, you'd be in the hall leading to Matt's room, Hannah's room, a half bathroom, and a shared laundry/freezer/utility room along the way. The Weebsquatch's lair haunts me to this day. His basement living room had brown shag carpet and wood-paneled walls. All 3 windows were blocked with tinfoil, ratty windows, black sheets, and duct tape, while 3 to 4 black sheets crudely nailed to the ceiling constituted privacy walls. The Weebsquatch's hoard was easy to see through the gaps in the sheets that were hastily and shoddily nailed to the roof by the creature, who was on the cusp of understanding and applying the use of rudimentary tools. Disorganized piles of manga, anime, and Gundam figurines, various video game consoles, computers, video games with Japanese titles, clothes with no dressers or hangers scattered about, A love seat, some computer chairs, a desk, and a shabby double bed were all packed into the living room so that there was barely enough room to walk between everything. Several more black sheets, many more nails, and a month later, the Weebsquatch's positioning and layering of privacy sheets finally closed the cave off from the view of a passerby. Do you think these people are being kind of judgmental? I mean, I get that the narration is written with everything he did in mind, but did they really have to discuss how this guy was weird and smelled bad after meeting him for 30 seconds? It is possible for someone to smell that bad, of course. I guess we'll see. Dominic made no attempts to endear himself to any roommates in the house. What we learned of him was that he slept through most of the day and spent his nights watching anime, occasional hentai. My roommates and I were all pretty sure that the cutesy-sounding moaning and screaming sounds coming from the basement were not from Cowboy Bebop or some other anime. And playing his Japanese video games, all at inappropriately loud volumes late at night. I felt increasingly uncomfortable with Dominic's antisocial behavior the month before school started. He avoided everyone in the house, and when we did bump into him, he mumbled or grumbled in reply to our greetings, opting to speak in the language of Sasquatches rather than our native English. When invited to play Smash Bros. Or hang out, he'd grumble and say nothing, then shamble back to his lair. On more than one occasion, when my roommates and I were gaming and having a few beers in the living room near the top of the stairs, we'd hear the ungodly sounds of Dominic and Hannah banging. It sounded like a huffing and puffing silverback gorilla rhythmically squeaking the springs and frame of a bed that can't handle the beast's weight. It's amazing how having nothing but sheets for a door makes sound carry through a house. Still, with days closing in until the start of school, we tried to laugh off the absurdity of living with a Weebsquatch. My friends and I didn't care much that loud anime, hentai, and Japanese video games often disturbed our sleep, because we were celebrating freedom from our parents for the first time in our lives. Hannah maintained the appearance of being pretty cool for a little while after I moved in. She was awake in the day, exchanged normal niceties with roommates, left for parts of the day, and appeared to sleep at night like a normal person. Then school started. First-year university is a stressful time for many people, but the stress of school and adapting to a normal human social setting seemed to affect the Weebsquatch and his mistress more than anyone else in the house. 1 month into the 8-month school year, they started fighting. Loud arguments always seemed to be coming from the Weebsquatch lair. The Weebsquatch's deep, throaty, seldom-used voice contrasted with Hannah's high-pitched, almost squeaky voice, woke all the roommates up on school nights, and got more and more frequent and uncomfortable to listen to throughout the year. The sounds of Weeb entertainment also continued to emanate from the basement late at night, even though Dominic had classes during the day, and the sleep disturbances became less bearable for the group of freshmen sharing the house with Dominic and Hannah. I remember when semi-frequent lovers' quarrels first degenerated into a full-blown mental health episode for Hannah. It started in the dead of winter, when on a frigid winter Saturday of negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, Hannah charged upstairs after a heated argument with Dominic. Wearing only pajama shorts and a t-shirt, and while sobbing, she opened every window in the house for no apparent reason, put on a pair of boots, and left for a walk outside for about 20 minutes, having ignored my friend and me when we asked if she was okay. The entire spectacle happened right in front of me while I was sitting at the kitchen table studying, and my roommate was on the living room couch watching a movie. Stunned, my friend and I exchanged glances, closed all the windows, and debated whether Hannah was silently hoping for someone to go after her so that she didn't freeze to death. The Weebsquatch was playing some extra gross-sounding hentai games for most of the time that Hannah was gone, and sure enough, she came back, blue-lipped, shivering, and still managing the sort of sob only a half-frozen person can. She once again ignored us completely when we asked if she was okay, opened all the closed-up windows, and went to the basement to not be seen for the rest of the weekend. I still can't understand why Hannah tried to freeze the inside of her dad's rental property. A silent cry for release from the bonds of her Weebsquatch captor, maybe? Yeah, it sounds like Hannah's having the hardest time dealing with this guy, and I guess rightfully so. This is the kind of call for help she's giving, and he doesn't even pay attention to it. I guess the hentai must be pretty engaging. After that wintry drama, both Hannah and Dominic started taking their relationship woes and student stress out on all the other roommates in increasingly bizarre ways. Remember Matt, the physics student? His room was between Hannah's room and the Weebsquatch lair in the basement. Matt really had the worst of all the unpleasantness associated with living in that house. Every conversation, fight, depraved fornication, late-night hentai, and video gaming session sounded far louder to Matt than to anyone else. He also had to share a downstairs bathroom with Dominic. Matt was getting fed up with Dominic before the fateful winter Saturday and started seeking Dominic out to tell him to turn down the volume, be more respectful, and stop being such a mess. Unfortunately, Matt also made the mistake of calling Dominic a Sasquatch to his face. Dominic, being a few thousand years from evolving acceptable social skills for the modern age, began having some loud arguments with Matt, in addition to Hannah, which mostly took place with Matt yelling into the Weebsquatch lair and the Weebsquatch yelling back, but refusing to come out and face Matt, while Matt refused to enter the Weebsquatch cave. The growing tension and arguments made for a surreal and disturbing roommate experience throughout the winter. Hannah, for her part, started having sobbing mental health episodes more frequently. Some notable ones include calling a house meeting to scream at everyone that our dishwasher privileges were revoked, screeching at me that the small quaint sunroom in the house was quarantined and off limits permanently and that I'd be punished for using the room, hazard taping off the small, completely safe back deck area where we had barbecues, and for no apparent reason other than spite, pulling the faucet off of the functional small sink in the half bathroom that Matt had shared with Dominic. For 2 painful weeks, my 2 friends, Matt and I, all had to share the upstairs master bathroom with the Weebsquatch, while the downstairs sink was allegedly being repaired by Hannah's father. In one particularly disturbing incident, I was talking on the phone with a classmate I used to study and complete assignments with, and I invited him to work on an assignment at my place. Hannah was eavesdropping on my conversation, came out of nowhere and yelled at me that it's not my place. The house belonged to her and her father, and I was not allowed to refer to the house as my place. The worst thing was that most of us saw Hannah's increasingly erratic behavior as a cry for help, but she was both our landlord and increasingly alienating towards everyone, so we could only try to avoid her. Yeah, that's the kind of shit that really burns me up. If you're paying to live somewhere, then I'd say it's your place. I'd like to note that this story predates the pandemic, so quarantining a room is really weird. Seems like college would be a good time for kids to notice their mental illnesses, maybe for the first time. By spring, with the end of the school year approaching, tensions were high between pretty much everyone. My friends and I were no longer having a good time living in a house with Hannah and Dominic, and we still had a few months left on our lease. Hannah was restricting our access to appliances and areas in the house we had once enjoyed, and the feeling of being trapped was shared between me, Matt, and my 2 friends. On a school day at the end of the year, I came home to find Matt, along with one of my friends, packing their things and getting ready to move out. It was nothing personal towards me, my friend assured, but that morning the Weebsquatch had approached them, bizarrely accused them of theft, though he wouldn't say what was missing, and personally, without Hannah being present, issued eviction notices to Matt and my friend. The eviction notice explicitly mentioned theft and was signed only by the Weebsquatch's clumsy hand, so they had gotten in touch with Hannah's father, threatened him and Hannah with a lawsuit, clawed back their damage deposit, and scouted out a new apartment to move into within the week. Matt and my friend warned that similar notices had been waiting for me and my other friend, but they had intervened with Hannah's father, who was, at that very moment, at his home, having a serious discussion with Hannah and Dominic about the eviction stunt. It remains a mystery whether anything was ever stolen, or if Dominic was simply as sick of living with everyone else as we were tired of living with him and Hannah. The most victorious interaction I ever had with the Weebsquatch occurred in the same evening. The Weebsquatch, berated and torn down by his girlfriend's father, returned that evening looking utterly rejected. The younger, cockier 20-year-old me, angered by the events of that day, played dumb and told the Weebsquatch when he came home, with Hannah and her father following closely behind him, that I heard he had some sort of a document for me. Then, in a great evolutionary leap, with a tear forming at the edge of his eye, the Weebsquatch tried to scowl at me while attempting to process the complex emotion of shame with his primitive brain. He said not a word, but bowed his head and slinked off to the depths of his lair to lick his wounds and understand the frightening new emotions he had encountered that day. Hannah and her father apologized to me for the drama, but Hannah's father, being all business, reminded me that one friend and I were still under the terms of my lease for another 3 months or so, and he had only negotiated to release Matt and my other friend from their lease agreements. After the eviction incident and the subsequent intervention by Hannah's father, the Weebsquatch gained some small level of civility. Over the next 2 weeks, the Weebsquatch learned how to use headphones and the basement became deathly quiet, though I'm sure he continued his nocturnal lifestyle of watching and playing all of his favorite Japanese content, not grooming himself, wearing smoky eye makeup, and a choker with ill-fitting anime shirts and gym shorts. I'm pretty sure the eviction incident broke Hannah and Dominic up for good, but I'm not certain. Hannah finished classes, left one day, and only returned to get the rent payments. After everything was cleared up by her father's Deus Ex Machina intervention, my remaining friend and I resumed using the sunroom, dishwasher, and deck again. But the damage of Hannah's outburst was done, and we felt like unwanted guests in our leased home. My friend and I finished classes and rented a new place together, happily forfeiting our damage deposits to leave 1 month early. We spent a total of 11 months living with the Weebsquatch and his mistress, and I still laugh to myself and shake my head sometimes when I remember the time that I endured living in that deranged house. College, am I right? Gotta feel like these stories are usually embellished a bit, but there's a lot of weird random details that make me mostly believe it. Gotta wonder why they decided to have sex in a room obscured by curtains instead of her own real room? If he was too gross to let in her room, then maybe she shouldn't have been touching him. Be sure to let me know what you think about Dominic or Hannah in the comments, and if reading some of these old stories is actually worth it. My old videos are pretty bad. Okay, just one more thing. I've got a few Lucas posts I'd like to read. He's still in the same nursing home, but now he's posting on Facebook regularly instead of Instagram. I went to more parties in my 20s than any other time in my life. A simple get-together would do me well right about now. Again, I presume there will be women present, and this won't just be a schlong fest. I've always loathed the frat boy males, but hey, this is a college town. Maybe we can party together sometime. I presume there will be women. I also presume you won't cock-block my ass. Lucas has said before that guys who would rather hang out with men than women must be gay. He doesn't understand the concept of a guy's night, let alone bros before hoes. He's putting on a clinic on how not to have any friends. Anyway, that's about all the time I have for you today. Thanks for watching, as always. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you have something to say, make sure you let me hear it in the comments, because I will be reading them. If you're new here, consider subscribing for more of the same. I hope to be a little more productive here in the near future, and I definitely plan to make another video tomorrow. Big thanks also to my awesome patrons who support me more directly over on Patreon. Thank you so much. Jimmo, Anui Blue, Levon, Maxo11X, Chris Sturman, MDB3000, Bumbus McDunga, Clipper, Amanda Gillies, Bethy Williams, Big Mike Shirley, Cacti Lady Wither, Cho, Daniel De La Pena, Don Smith, Deborah Douglas, Dr. A, Horatio T, Justin Godsey, Kitty Sparkles, Leanne Summers, Ouroboros, Rob Sopp, Sammy, Sandyman, Spoonie the Rogue, V stands for, Wernology, William Ash, Jacob K, Camper Supreme, Psychic Kumquat, Alex Anakin, Alan Fang, Knit1 Code 2, Lil Spoon, Ms. Mayhem, Staples aka Jerry Yeet, Ben Pott, Cockblocks, Francois Tremblay, Nick Lucarelli, and Petulant Panda. Thank you again. Yeah, this is a pretty long video for me. Anyway, I'll be back soon. Have a great night, everyone, and stay out of the sunroom or I swear to God I'll punish you.